Pulse 95. Between local lines, notes from the Emirate.
Well, in the lead up to the 10th edition of the International Government Communication Forum, it's scheduled to be held here in Sharjah Expo. In fact, it's going to be on the September 26th and 27th under the theme Historic Lessons, Future Ambitions. And the forum has announced that it will review the critical messages delivered by leaders and governments in the wake of the pandemic. The discussion will aim to offer qualitative assessment of its impact in reshaping lifestyles and also the public behaviors to boost the future readiness of government communication teams in the event of further unpredictable global challenges and emergencies that might emerge.
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion on a topic because during the pandemic, countries from around the world, they used many ways to communicate with their public on following COVID-19 precautionary measures, the nature of COVID-19, what it is, how it could spread, and how people could keep themselves safe. Governments also needed people to comply with new measures that really turned their lives upside down. So to have the ability to convince them to do something like that, it takes a lot, and it's not something that everyone had nailed perfectly. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to be examined during the IGCF, both in the short-term and long-term impact of these communication strategies. And that's going to be one of many discussions at the IGCF, which takes place starting September 26 at the Expo Center Sharjah. It will provide a unique opportunity to discuss the important role of government communication during times of crisis. It will also highlight valuable lessons crucial for building effective, responsive and agile government communication strategies.
We're looking forward to this one because it's a very timely and a very, I'd say, something that deserves to be discussed a lot more, especially when it comes to comparing different countries and how they've responded to the pandemic. And that remains to be the key message. And even when they had asked media to submit their work, and even for the IGCC awards that they do, the International Government Communication Awards, a lot of it was surrounding the pandemic. What kind of content did you create, or what kind of work that your government has been involved with to have the response to the pandemic. So this is going to be great. So the 10th edition of the IGCF will be held at the Expo Center Sharjah. Once again, the dates 24th and 26th of September.
No, 26th, 27th.
26th is 27th September. See, I'm an early bird. I would have been there early and checking it out. So 26th and 27th of September, mark those dates in your diary. And this is going to be a great event. Now, tomorrow, we are planning on attending the press conference. Tomorrow we will get the list of people who will be attending, or the speakers who will be joining the IGCF. It looks like it's going to be a power-packed list because we do know that just after a few days from the IGCF, the World Expo is going to kick off. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that a lot of those delegates will be arriving early and will be taking part in IGCF before the start of the Expo 2020. Stay with us on the Morning Majlis. There's lots to get through. But one particular Sharjah event that I'm a massive fan of and is the World of Musical Concert. We had Mr. Lewis Capaldi.
That's true.
In Sharjah last...
That was a while. Let's just say that.
Was it a year?
2 years ago, maybe.
Was it 2 years?
It was like 2 years, yeah.
But those 2 years, they flew by.
They've flown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pre-pandemic.
That's true.
Oh, gosh. Well, let's do a little bit of a throwback. We have a bit of a mashup of his tunes, or some of his tunes. So we'll just do a bit of a Lewis Capaldi tribute and remember the good old days of the events in the country and how it was a memorable night for the Emirate of Sharjah. And IGCF is going to prove to be on the similar wavelength as well. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis, Pulse 95.
Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis. Back again with a bit of an educational vibe. And we have been asking you a quiz question this morning, asking you to guess where can you find the world's longest road tunnel, in which country. Do text us with your responses on 4215. But in terms of new educational zones and educational hubs here in the Emirate of Sharjah, the Sharjah Private Education Authority have announced the opening of 7 new private schools in the Emirate. Just in case you were wondering that we need more schools and more school runners out and about in the morning, well, you've been served a wonderful platter of 7 new schools. They include Darb As-Saada Private School, as well as Victoria International Private School as well.
Yeah, and Mantina American Private School, Al Medina International Private School, Al Sidra Private School, Gulf American Private School, and Shuwaifat Sabis International Private School as well. Now, according to the...
You can never have enough Shuwaifat schools.
No, we can never. For sure. According to the chairperson of the Sharjah Private Education Authority, Her Excellency Dr. Muhadditha Al-Hashimi, she did welcome the new schools to join the educational system here in the Emirate, given the stimulating and encouraging environment for launching educational projects, which contributes to increasing and also diversifying the educational opportunities for students here in the Emirate of Sharjah. And Her Excellency continued this leads to the achievement of academic outputs of international standards, appreciating the efforts of the local bodies and authorities that adopt a methodology based on integration and work to serve the educational sector.
Yeah, and it's, looking at the overall return to schools, I remember last year parents are pretty terrified of the notion of sending their kids back to school, but it looks like this time around, people are generally more optimistic about having their kids return to face-to-face learning. And the expectation here is that over this week, and we're going to see even more and more students return to their classes, because initially, when they opened things back up for the school semester last week, people were still a little bit cautious, especially here in Sharjah, where there isn't that requirement for everybody to return right away. But according to reports, some school principals had spoken to media saying they're looking at way more students coming back as the days go on, and parents just saying, let's just go back to normality.
Yeah, that's what the situation is. I think a lot of school students were also missing their friends and missing that experience of being in school, and especially for the senior years in school, when you're fast approaching your GCSEs or IB curriculum examinations. You can't be away for too long, and for the young ones as well, this is the time of their life. You know, to be out and about, running around school playgrounds, making friends, and dealing with bullies and competing against bullies and all that stuff. It's just parts of growing up, and if you take that away just to be on a laptop, it's difficult. I mean, we didn't struggle, but we didn't really enjoy doing our live shows on Zoom. I mean, even though
that's true,
we literally got out of bed in pajamas and went on air.
That was the good part about it. But
that's the only
later
good part.
on, when we came back to the studio, we're like, oh yeah, we definitely missed this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, pressing the buttons and making sure that the music is fine, and the experience of being in a studio. So all of this, I'm glad. I'm guessing a lot of the students are glad that they're back in schools. But do let us know on the text line 4215 how it is going for you. Another thing is that nurseries in the Emirate of Sharjah are not taking new students for the new academic year. So a lot of parents who do want their children to go back to nurseries have decided to take them to different emirates and try getting them admitted into a nursery. So that's what the situation is at the moment as well. But do let us know on the text lines 4215 how excited you are to see another 7 new schools joining the list of educational establishments here in the Emirate of Sharjah. We'll be back again right after the sports headlines. Once again, a reminder to our quiz question. Faisal has responded again. She said Sheikh Zayed Tunnel. I was like, no, Sheikh Zayed Tunnel is the longest road tunnel here in the UAE. Our question is, the longest road tunnel in the world. Where can you find it? It is 24.5 kilometers long. If you know the answer, keep those texts rolling in with your name at the end. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the friend of our show, Faisal, to get it right this time round. Third time lucky, hopefully. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day indeed. A happy week for Filipinos here in the UAE. After nearly 4 months, the Philippines is finally lifting its ban on travelers here from the UAE, and it was announced actually yesterday. So starting tomorrow, September 6th, the Philippine government, it will ease the current restrictions for passengers flying in from the UAE, as well India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Oman, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and according to the presidential spokesperson. Now, they also said that international travelers coming from the above-mentioned countries, they shall, however, comply with the appropriate entry, testing, and quarantine protocols depending on the country's approved listing. Philippines had placed the ban on travelers from the UAE. It started on May 15th and left thousands of expats and tourists definitely stranded. And ever since then, the Philippine government, they have been mounting repatriation flights to take home Filipinos in distress, those with expired visas, medical patients, and other expats facing emergencies. Though restrictions, they have been eased, airlines are still awaiting clarity on travel procedures.
Yeah, indeed. And as far as the travelers from the 10 countries, they'll have to spend 14 days in a quarantine when they arrive. So the first 10 days are going to be in a government-approved hotel or facility, and then the rest of that will be completed at home. They must also undergo a PCR test on the 7th day. So this applies to people coming from the UAE and those other countries as well. And the country's interagency task force has updated its list of green countries or territories that are tagged as low risk for COVID-19. Now, the travel ban in the Philippines was first introduced back in April to help stop the spread of the Delta variant. And that's when the UAE was added in May 15, when passengers entering the Philippines from the country were found to have that Delta variant. That ban had been extended repeatedly every couple weeks, and great to see it finally being lifted. This is great news for expats.
Mm-hmm.
This is great news for expats, but this is where it gets very tricky, and this is where the world of travel and destinations have to come together and come up with a conclusion. They're saying that a lot of people, like Filipino nationals, have spoken to local media, quoted as saying that if I have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine, what's the point of me traveling back home?
Right, yeah.
This is the problem. If you are vaccinated, I think the world should just let you through, because it's not that the vaccine is salt water being injected in your body. It's an approved dose by WHO and the rest of the world to say, okay, this is useful in fighting the pandemic. But now if you're still going to make travelers quarantine or even stay indoors, or it's great, okay, if you were allowed to quarantine at home for a couple of days, that way you're going to stay with your family, which is good. You're not going to go rush off and meet your friends or wherever. But then this is where it gets tricky. Is it really going to convince people that it's okay to travel now? Let us know on the text lines 4215. It's a great thing that families can reunite, and I think the biggest thing is that Filipino overseas workers who were stranded in Philippines and worked in the UAE now can come back to the country so that they can easily take a flight and stay here, which is good. And we've seen our own colleagues reconnected with their loved ones, which is always great to see. But this is bizarre, to be honest, the fact that you still have to quarantine even if you've been vaccinated. And this is where people will say, what was the point of me getting vaccinated in the first place?
That's true, yeah. Especially when you told me that in Europe they don't really accept our vaccine because it's not from Europe.
In UK, this is, and Europe accepted it. So certain countries in Europe have opened their doors, right? So let's say Switzerland and Spain and Greece and Netherlands as well as another country that lets you land and use a Sinopharm vaccine. So if you've been vaccinated with the WHO-approved vaccine, that's fine. The UK says that if that vaccine was not administered in the EU region or the United States, let alone Canada, only the United States, then we can consider your vaccine genuine.
Yeah, this entire vaccine thing is pretty odd.
It's a drama.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real whole ass drama. But looking at the state of cases within the Philippines, it's been spiking. It's been spiking really, really bad. I mean, over the month of August, cases have been reaching 20,000 a day, and that's what's happening as of late, which might explain some of the more draconian measures that they are imposing in the Philippines right now. But here's a hope that the number of cases would go down and they would relax the travel restrictions. But I believe the way the measures are this bad is because the cases are that bad in the Philippines at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is where it is, isn't it? Southeast Asia has really suffered a lot when it comes to the COVID-19 restrictions. So we'll keep a close eye on the developments. We're inviting you to share your thoughts and opinions with us on the show. And if you would like to let us know when you are planning on going back to your home country, it'll be great to hear from you and how excited you are. So shout out to all of our listeners from the Philippines. When you do text us with your name at the end so that we can give you an appropriate shout out as well. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Stay fit. Stay fit. Stay fit.
Well, who got a chance to keep up with the World Cup Asian qualifiers games on Thursday? Because we've seen a lot of games taking place. United Arab Emirates played against Lebanon.
Yeah. Lebanon put a defense.
0-0. Yeah.
An incredible defense. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, it's true. And also Australia against China. Australia took 3. Saudi Arabia against Vietnam. And Saudi Arabia took 3 against 1. But we're expecting to see some other games taking place on Tuesday, this Tuesday, in fact. A lot of them. South Korea will be playing against Lebanon. Vietnam will be playing against Australia. China will be playing against Japan. Oman will be playing against Saudi Arabia. Syria will be playing against United Arab Emirates. And Iraq will be playing against Iran as well.
That's going to be a game to watch for sure. And we're also looking forward to the UAE taking on Iraq on the 12th of October. That's going to be a game to watch for sure.
That's going to be intense.
It's going to be very intense. And then we've
For me, it's going to be intense. Because, I mean, I support both.
Exactly. Yeah, you're caught in the middle.
I literally do support both. So whoever wins, I'll be happy. It's fine.
Actually, yeah, it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
You'll be fine either way.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's good. Lots to look forward to. And let's see what happens in the qualifiers. But we're hoping the UAE, it won't be a massive setback after that 0-0 draw. That's, as a sporting fan, that's the worst scoreline to end up with. You watch 90 minutes and it's just goalless.
Yeah.
Yeah, not cool.
Especially in what a lot of people saw as more of a lopsided matchup with Lebanon being 98th. And a lot of people didn't expect Lebanon to sort of put this defense that they did. And when you say 0-0, that's momentum sapping for your team. It's like, we couldn't do it. Or can we do it later? So it's tricky.
Yep, and looking at the world of tennis, her U.S. Open title defense ended in the third round, and she's not been in the best of all forms at the moment because she did withdraw from the French Open after she did claim that she was struggling with her mental health, and since first becoming a Grand Slam champion 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. So the 23-year-old has sadly
she wants to take another break.
Yeah. That's Naomi Osaka. She said in a press conference, quote, "I feel like I'm kind of at this point where I'm trying to figure out what I want to do." That does not sound good. She also said, "I honestly don't know when I'm going to play my next tennis match. I think I'm going to take a break from playing for a while. I feel like for me recently, when I win, I don't feel happy.
Oof.
I feel more like a relief. And then when I lose, I feel very sad. I don't think that's normal."
I mean, it kind of is, but as a professional athlete, it should not be the case.
Yeah, I mean, you also don't often hear players talk this candidly about mental health struggles during games. But, I mean, does that set her back, having to quit over and over again and talk about struggling this much? Because a lot of people might say, hey, just tough it out. Look at other players like Djokovic, for example, who's been in the game for so long and is known for being mentally tough. Djokovic, for instance, for a while he did not have the best serve, but there's just something about his mental tenacity on the court. Sometimes he would play hurt and his coaches would beg him to leave the game. He'd be like, no, I'm going to win. And it's just, he does this mental training for himself. He calls it, and he's mind over matter and belief in yourself and being positive, and somehow he can do it. And maybe, I don't know what Osaka is going through, but it's pretty tough. And she's very young too to be going through.
I think that's what it is. She's young and she tasted enormous success at the age of 20.
Yeah.
So I think after that bit of a hype and that bit of an oomph, and then things not to go your way, it certainly will take a toll on your mental strength, and really got to feel for it, because it's just a very powerful statement to make for her to say that, I normally like challenges, but now I feel very anxious and when things don't go my way, and I feel like you can feel that, and I was kind of like a little kid, so it's worrying. It's very, very, there needs to be some form of support that needs to be extended towards Naomi Osaka, because for a champion-like Spirit to be down and out at the moment is just not an ideal scenario. Well, stay with us on Pulse 95. The Morning Majlis shall return tomorrow morning bright and early, and we will continue the discussions here on the program. But if you'd like to catch up with some of the podcasts, you can log into some websites.
Yes, you certainly can. Check out our Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast pages. Just type Morning Majlis in the search bar. We're also uploading our videos on the YouTube channel at Pulse 95 Radio. Thank you all for tuning in to today's show. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Until then, stay tuned to Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.